Life, death, life is where me and Mandell have been spending the past 2 hours with. Uh, Beginning with friendship, he's sharing a story of the most fantastic friendship that he has since high school, before even, with a big group of guys. And it's just, it's thrilling to listen to. I love listening to that type of rich connection. And then there's me having turned 50. Mandel is really good at asking questions, so you get a lot of me in this conversation. For better or for worse, I don't know, but that's what you're getting. Throw in a little bit of parenting and marriage and death. A lot of conversation on death as well. So I hope that won't scare you away, but rather would make you want to listen a little bit extra, because there is some tankespjan to be had here. So dive in and have fun. Indeed. Hi, Mandel. How are you?
How are you, Helena? How are you? I never noticed a piano or organ in your background before.
It's a piano, and it's been there the entire time. It's a smaller piano. It's what in Swedish is called kammarpiano, so a chamber piano. So it only has 5 octaves. A
Mhm.
normal piano has 7 octaves, so it has one less at the top and the bottom.
Okay.
Uh, but I've had that piano since I was 14.
Mm.
We moved. My mom divorced, and we moved, and we then left the piano that I was taking lessons on. And so we had to get a new piano for me. And so we got that one, which was actually, it's an Österlind and Almqvist, I think their name is. And the piano factory is in the city that we moved to. So it's an Arvika made piano that I got when I was living in Arvika,
Mm.
which I think was kind of fun.
And when's the last time you played?
A long time ago. My bonus grandkids enjoy it when they come.
Mm.
They're the ones who use it mostly. I basically, I mean, honest to God, I basically haven't played the piano for 30 years.
Mm.
So it's not as if I use it a lot. I sing in a choir, and I do that actively, and
Oh,
I
good.
play or I'm taking guitar lessons, I should say, since 6 years back.
Wow.
Um, so I play the guitar much more than I play the piano, and I could definitely play the guitar much more than I do. Um,
And I
but
think is that the
it's just me and another lady taking lessons here locally, and we've set our mind that we, together with our teacher, we will be having a sing along afternoon, evening, some weekend in the fall.
Mm.
So we have to pick out 10 of the songs that we've played in these years, and make sure that that they're good ones to have a sing along to. So that will be good. That will get me some fire in my behind to actually get some piano playing done.
Mm.
Um,
And is that the guitar leaning against the wall there in your background?
yep, it's in its bag. And that guitar is a 3/4 size guitar, because
Mhm.
a big guitar is, it's hard enough to grasp all of the chords with my lady hands. Um, that guitar I bought used from a dear friend. Her son is a very skilled musician, and he's recording music and stuff, and he's studying to be a music teacher now, I think.
Mm.
He used that guitar for a long time during his adolescence.
Mhm.
And as it is, when they came and dropped it off, he kind of played a little, and it sounds divine. And then I started playing. It doesn't sound divine at all, which makes me go, okay, it's me. It's not the guitar. The guitar has every, possibility to make really, really pretty sounds, but I
Mm.
don't always manage.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought, because I think oftentimes I know for me, especially when I was growing up, I guess you would say, I would always think it's the instrument or like the thing that you're using when really it's the person, it's the player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would go out and try to get all the latest gear. Oh, if I get this, I'll be so much better. If I do this, I'll
Yeah.
be so much better.
Yeah.
When it's really just you the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, it can be both, right? I mean, you could have a plastic toy guitar. Even David, my friend's son, wouldn't be able to make that sound divine, I'm guessing. But there's quite a lot of. I know that there's a couple of movies that have been made with an iPhone, like specifically to just prove the point that you actually don't need to have anything else than the stuff that everybody has around,
Mhm.
which I think it's a good tankespjärn to get that now and again. It's easy to make everything into kind of a material sport. It's all about the equipment.
Mhm.
What's the latest tech? Whereas, it's not necessarily that makes a difference. It can, but y- you know, put a great camera or a guitar in the hands of a total noob. They won't. They won't do divine stuff.
Yeah.
And put an ace photographer using a point and shooter, one of those
Mhm.
one-time camera things, could probably take some really awesome pictures with it. So
Yeah.
it's a combination, uh, but you shouldn't use it as an excuse, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And the camera is such a good example because that's another gadget, a hobby that I had took interest in at one point, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get the best camera." So I did all this research, and I brought a Canon. I want to say it was a 70D,
Yeah,
and it's a great camera,
yeah,
but um, I've seen photographers or people that practice photography use a much less um technical camera, with stats, all the stats, and it's about the eye and the person and
yeah,
what they see and
yeah,
angles and all that kind of stuff. So what those years taught me was that sometimes when you want to jump into a hobby or something new, you could get, like you said, it can't be a toy, but you can get the most simple or the most basic level one and just master that. Like if you can master that and then say, okay, I'm ready for the next one. I'm ready for the next one. That's much better than getting the best on the market and then only using two features and
yeah,
and
yeah,
wondering why you can't quite grasp it like the next person.
yeah.
So that's it. That's a
And
great lesson.
it's an I have a I wanna say it's a Nikon, but whatever. I got
Hmm.
one of those for my 40th birthday
Hmm.
because it was like, okay, I'm getting to the point where I feel limited by the point and shoot that I had.
Hmm.
So I got that one, and for the first year or so, I only used it on automatic, which is
Mm.
like, okay, yeah, but I'm not really using the camera. I don't need that. So I
Hmm.
finally took a course and learned, and then started to
Mm.
play with it, and I learned it to the level where I can use that camera and take good pics outside. I still have a problem inside because it actually does need extra. You need extra flashes and stuff, and
Hmm.
it's like I'm just not. I haven't gone down that road at all, but
Hmm.
the thing that was really striking for me when I got that camera, when I started to take pictures with it, was that my eye became so much more um, present to me. Because I could be driving, not at all with my camera around, going down a road, just seeing, oh, this would make such a great photo.
Mm.
So I brought my photo eye, or my photo vision, in a sense, with me in a much more top of mind um, way, where I was like, I was noticing, if I were to take a picture here, I would take it from this angle, and I would make sure
Mhm.
that I have this, so I was like composing images in my head, even if I didn't have the camera around.
Mm.
Which I thought was kind of fun, because again, it made me see that there's so much more to photography than the camera.
Mhm. So true. And speaking of, your gift for your 40th birthday, you just celebrated your 50th, so now I'm
I did.
curious,
I
what
did.
did you do and what did you gift yourself, if anything, this time around?
So I have, I don't think I've ever been so thrilled with a
Mm.
birthday as this one. I've often celebrated my birthday. I mean, during COVID, no, but I've always had kind of friends and family for a coffee and cake um in the garden type celebration. So that's not uncommon, but this time it feels as if I've gone all in. So I'm actually aiming for 50 celebrations this year.
Mm.
Not all of them has to be bubbles and champagne and balloons and stuff. It can be just me and my sister in the sauna. Can be
Mm.
a celebration, but I'm ascribing it a quality, a celebratory quality, in a sense. But so I had a gardening party where I invited friends over to help me in the garden, to work in the
Wow.
garden. And I made lunch so that we could have lunch. And that was awesome. We got so much done that I still wouldn't have managed to do if they hadn't been here. And then the week after, I had a garden party with basically just family,
Mhm.
and part of my family at that, because my brother who lives in the UK, and my other brother who lives in the US, and my father and his wife who live in Stockholm, like 600 kilometers north. Everybody was down here anyway because my brother was over. So I had a garden party, and it was gorgeous. The weather was just perfect. And my garden looked so pretty because of the gardening party. Um, and then I had an open house. So I invited other people who hadn't been to the garden party to come for an open house. And so I had that starting at 3 o'clock, and well, we kind of ended it at midnight or something. And people were coming and dropping in. And, it's like maybe all in all 30, 35 people. So not a lot of people, but
Mhm.
really lovely. And I didn't want a lot of people because I
Mhm.
wanted to have a chance to talk to everybody, which I didn't quite manage, really, but close enough. But the perfect thing about that, and this is, I so recommend this. I said in the invite, I said, I have drinks. You bring something to eat.
Mhm.
So the buffet table in the kitchen was just, filling up with all of these delicious stuff. Everything from, like, cheeses to savory pies to sweet pies to
Mhm.
cookies to fruit to, it was lovely. It's such a great idea, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It is so much fun. Um, so that was really lovely. And then a week after that, I had kind of a corresponding thing. I had a drop-in party on Zoom. So I sat in front of the computer for 6 hours thinking that if nobody's coming, I have stuff to do, but I had Zoom open, and there were probably about 20 people kind of zooming in and out during those hours. So that was
Mm.
also just a lovely experience. And tomorrow, I'm having a Buddhist with friends little dinner gathering with my two Buddha friends from Buddhist by the Roadside, the podcast that we used to have, me, Caspian, and Dominic. So I'm planning that at the moment, what I'm cooking and stuff. And I would say I've gifted myself, besides the fact of all of these celebrations, I have gifted myself two things. One is a retreat that I'm going to in a couple of weeks, a 4-day retreat called the Twilight Retreat with some interesting friends. Two women who goes by the names of Wild Herbarista and When the Blackbird Sings on Instagram. They're hosting a retreat quite local to here, where it's my time. It's the people who come. It's our time, and there will be ceremonies and rituals and time for reflection and sharing. And it's like it's not really a this is what we're retreating to do. It's more come here and just enjoy. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I would say one of the best things, and I was not certain I would do this, but I created a Google form with a handful of questions asking people, how are we connected? What does our connection give you? What's there? Do you have a memory you want to share with me? And if we were to do something, what would that be?
Mm.
And so far, I have 70 responses to that. And I've been
Mm.
hounding people, and I still have some people that I'm gonna hound because I want their response to it. But it has been the most fantastic experience, Mandel. I so recommend everybody do this. And it was actually brought on by somebody in my sphere who got sick. And I was thinking, I wanna share how important this person is to me and has been to me. And I wanna do that now. I don't wanna do that if and when that person dies. I wanna do it now. So I had this thought that, oh, I wanna hear what people would say on my funeral, kind of, you know? But I wanna do this. And then I thought, "No, I can't do that. That's such a dumb idea." And I was like, "No, it isn't. I'm gonna do it." So I created a simple Google Forms and I'm sending the link out to people. And it's a great mix from my daughter having responded to my boss that I've been working with in various projects and for 20 plus years to my two Buddhas so it's like it's really, really close bosom friends. It's people I work with, people that, well, we're acquaintances and we have fun, but it's like all of that. And it's lovely. It is. So I'm going to collect all of those responses and I'm going to make that into a personal pep book to
Mm.
bring forth in times of need or desperation or when I feel lonely or when I need a reminder of the fact that I matter, that I do make a difference, that there's people out there who love me. Um,
Mm. It's so much, so much came to mind as you were speaking. One is that you really live a full life. I'm sitting here like, man, she's involved in so much and doing so much and constantly, I feel like learning and growing and
Mm.
like we've had many conversation. I didn't know about your history playing the piano or that you're taking guitar lessons. And definitely, I feel like you're so creative. The gardening party, I'd never heard of that. uh, but it just sounds like an amazing idea. And even the drop in Zoom thing is like, oh, that's incredible. Anybody at any time could drop in. But it's so much creativity, which kind of goes back to your point about the camera. And even when you don't have your camera with you, how you're looking for things or seeing things like, oh,
Yeah.
there's potential there. And I had recently, I took a course, a do lectures course called Think Different.
Mhm.
And towards the end of the course, Think Graham, who's the leader of the course, the teacher, he talks about photography and how he got involved in photography. And that was just one of the things that he said, like photography really opened up his creativity and how he saw things like, oh, what if this was upside down? Or what if this was this way? And it just brings forth so much creativity. But I feel like you're creative in so many different ways, like even specifically the garden party. Is that something that's normal in New Zealand, or is that just something you
In
just
Sweden, not
I
New
mean,
Zealand.
in
Sweden.
Sweden, I'm sorry. In Sweden, or did you
No,
just like come up with
no,
that? Okay.
it is not normal. My next door neighbor, one house down, I borrowed a wheelbarrow from him,
Hmm.
and he came with it, and he said, "A garden party? How did you do that?" It's like, "I've never heard of that." And I was like, "Well, he said, "Did you just ask?" I was like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
just asked. I picked friends."
Hmm.
I didn't ask everybody I know. I
Yeah.
picked friends that I know are interested in gardening or enjoy gardening or stuff, but we were 8 or 9 people,
Mm.
working more or less, more than, one person came to start with in the morning and then left after a couple of hours. And one person came towards the end. And, it's like, so not everybody was there for the entire day, but my friend, actually the mother of David, whose guitar that is,
Hmm.
she came and she said, "It's so much more fun to weed your front yard than it is to weed my own." And it is. There is a difference in this, knowing that you make a difference for somebody else,
Hmm.
knowing and being in good company. We were working and laughing and talking and eating and enjoying ourselves. It is. It's like life is better together.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's such a great way to spend time with each other. My aunt used to often say that she didn't want every time that she hung out with friends or family for it to be around food. Because
Yeah.
in my family, that often seems like to be the thing. Like, oh, let's all hang out. Let's go to a restaurant. Oh,
Yeah.
let's all hang out. Grandma's gonna cook. And I feel like a gardening party is such a great way
Yeah.
to hang out and do something
Yeah.
different, and you're really spending time with each other. And it's a great idea. I
And
don't garden,
I
but I
mean,
might have to steal it.
well, and you could do it when it can be like, "Oh, I need to really thoroughly clean my house," or I need to get rid of everything from the basement where storage, or, it doesn't really matter, or I need to have a new roof, or
Hmm.
I need to paint the room, or it doesn't really matter what it is, but you can do that thing together. And I mean, let's say that if we were 8 or 9 people, it doesn't really matter, but say that there was probably at least, let's say that was 40 man hours in the garden, effective time. That takes me a long time. I don't all day garden, you know? That would have
Hmm.
taken me 3 months to do.
Mm.
For me to put in the same amount of man hours. So what is possible when you come together, a little group, and like really get into something?
Mhm.
it jump starts. It's a leapfrog. It's a frog leap, right? Where you're like, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I'm ahead now instead of being so way behind. So it just really makes for a difference. And there's, again, it is a special thing, ask. It can be, it can be, you can also do it. It's like, okay, everybody bring your torn clothes that need mending. Let's have
Mhm.
a mending party. And you could be sitting with your own stuff, mending it, but you're doing it together.
Mhm. Yeah. It sounds like you could turn anything into a party and people would, like, get excited about it. Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's the same thing that you could do at home," like your friend said. It just feels better if I do it with a bunch of my
Yeah.
friends and we're
Yeah.
all doing it together, so I love that. Love that totally.
Yeah. And it's I think so I have been creative, uh, for my entire life as far as I can like remember, because I know I started to crochet and knit and stuff when I was, in preschool. Um, and I dabble with sewing clothes to myself out of just, um, out of sheets. And so it's like nothing fancy, but I didn't. I had fun. And I've been doing a lot of stuff with my hands that way. And I started to take singing lessons when I was 8, 9, piano lessons also at the same time. And the writing, I've always loved writing, but I only really got into it for me, not work writing 10 years ago when I started my blog. But photography, I like that. It's like it's always been a part of me. Um and I enjoy the multitude of it. I enjoy dabbling. Um, you know, I'd rather dabble in lots of things than be really ace at the piano, which is
Mm.
probably why I'm not really ace at the piano, which is why I'm dabbling in everything. But that suits me. It suits
Mhm.
my personality. It's like, yeah, I've knitted this one. I
Mhm.
Sashiko visibly mended my jeans that I'm wearing. I have the cardigan that I'm knitting is over in the bag. It's like, yeah, I like the various things. And there's such a there's such satisfaction in creating.
Mhm.
Like seeing something grow made by my fingers. It's like, whoa, that is so satisfactory for me.
Yeah. Speaking about multiple interests, you reminded me of the book. I don't know if you've read it already, by David Epstein, How Generalists Succeed in a World of Specialists, something of
No,
that nature.
Caspian
Okay.
has read it because he's also a
Okay.
generalist.
Yeah. And it's funny, I want to read the book off the simple fact that growing up, my dad used to always say, don't be a jack of all trades, a master of none. And for years, I believe that. And in some ways, I still do find importance in getting really good at one thing. But lately, books like that, ideas like that, there's like benefits of being interested in multiple things, whether you think about people like Elon Musk or Kanye West, how they kind of dominate all these spheres because they have so many interests. But you kind of remind me of that type of person,
Yeah,
guitar and
yeah,
knitting and gardening and
yeah,
biking and reading
yeah,
and writing and podcasts. It's just
yeah.
like
And
wow.
and in a sense, you can say that as a generalist, I'm really good at learning. I'm really good at
Mm,
experimenting. I'm really,
mhm,
really good. So my master of one thing might
mhm,
just be the fact that I can easily learn,
mhm.
which then is something that I can apply in so many different fields.
Yeah.
So in a sense, I'm a specialist in generalism.
Or a specialist in learning, because I
Yeah.
think that's something that's important. How to learn.
Yeah.
It's kind of something that people don't often think about. It's like I read years ago an article. I think it was about Warren Buffett, and it was just about like how to actually read,
Yeah.
like with understanding and levels to your reading and retaining information. But one of the things you just mentioned about being a generalist is you have all these different interests, and it can help your creativity when you bring all the different interests into this one idea, one project.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, no one's ever thought about combining this with this,
Yeah.
because you was able to bring it from multiple worlds that you live in versus just living in one world. And whatever profession it is, and you're just going straight for that way, it's more traditional versus, oh, I'm going to bring in this with this. It's like, oh, wow, here's a total new idea that stems from two separate ideas
Yeah.
to come one. So there's some
Yes.
definite benefits in being a generalist for sure.
And I read a lot,
Hmm.
as you know. And I read in parallel. So that's also one of the benefits to reading in parallel, to having several books going at once.
Hmm.
I have one fiction novel going, or two or three, but I have one on psychology, I have one on business or thinking, or, history, or so that then they marry as well.
Hmm.
Reading that fiction book at the same time as I'm reading about this historical aspect from, in a non-fiction book, can spark things in me that wouldn't have been sparked had I only read that one book. So for me, that also works. Um, again, it kind of does give those sparks that open up something new, because I have these. It's like I'm painting with more colors than just the one. It's like, yeah, because I can do more things with the more colors.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have 10 books going at once, but 2 or 3, try it out and see what happens. Because then I can also have light reading, when I'm a little bit tired, or it's like, oh, I really just need to relax. Okay. And then I have heavy reading. It's like, okay, that's when I'm not tired. That's when I
Hmm.
really have, okay, here I'm sharp enough so that I can, like you say, I can read and retain what I'm reading.
Hmm.
I can make connections, etc. Those books don't go well when it's midnight and I'm falling into bed tired from exhaustion, but I still
Hmm.
want to read a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't pick up The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist then. It's like, no, 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 no. That doesn't
Hmm.
work. It's not possible. I can read words, but it's not computing.
Hmm.
So I think I've made this into something that works for me, and it's probably based on the fact that I took Strength Finders years ago, which is now called Cliff something. Well, whatever. If you Google Strength Finders, you'll
Oh
find
yeah,
it.
yeah. I read it as well. I forget what it's called, Clifton or Cliff Notes or something like that. Yeah,
Clifton, yeah, I think.
yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
basically my number one is input. I
Hmm.
ace at input. Yeah, that totally makes sense. What with all of the books, the people that I can follow on Twitter, the blogs I can read, it's like, yeah, I'm good at input, which then makes this generalist way of being me such a fascinating thing for me, because I can, I can create with all of these different little building blocks. I can make stuff out of it that just, doesn't really make sense if you're just thinking about the one thing. But from my point of view, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Speaking of reading a lot, I know last time we spoke, I want to say you were in your 40s or 50s of books you already had read.
Yeah. I think I'm at 65 now. I have not been reading much for the last 2 months, actually.
You've been
I'm
celebrating your
just at
birthday.
65.
Which is a great year for many people, a superb year
Yeah.
for many people.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've been doing, as we all have already heard, amazing, great things. And I meant to tell you, I love the idea of 50 celebrations.
Yeah.
There was a story I saw on TV a few days ago. A couple adopted some children from Africa. I want to say it was Tanzania. I can't remember which country. And one of the children had his 12th birthday. And so they had a cake and they celebrated. And when the mom came out with the cake and they started saying happy birthday, he broke down and cried. But it wasn't a normal cry. It was like a boo-hoo, like the biggest cry
Yes.
ever. And so when they asked him why, he said that he had never celebrated his birthday before. That was never a thing back home where he was from in Africa. You kind of just went along. You didn't. It's almost as if you didn't know it was your birthday. There were much more important things. And when I started to think about it, and the commentator actually said this in the piece, was that when someone celebrates your birthday, they're literally saying, like, we're so happy that you're here, we're so happy that you're alive for another year, that we're a part of this. And something to us is simple. I've had birthdays where I had 10 cakes in one birthday. So it's like so regular. But here is this kid and he gets this birthday cake and he literally, it's like totally floored. Yeah, he fell apart. And, you made me think about that when you speak about your birthday and how your friends came together, and even how you said, I could celebrate my birthday with my sister in a sauna. And in that moment, she could be saying, man, I'm so thankful that you're here another year. And so there's so many creative ways that we can celebrate birthdays. I've heard people say, hey, I'm celebrating my birthday all month, which is great. But I love the idea of 50 celebrations. That could be anything, literally.
Yeah.
But you're celebrating that you're here another year. So
Yeah.
another great idea.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that sending out this forum has really made clear for me is the importance of saying the good stuff. Saying it's easy to say flippantly, oh, I love you. But
Mm-hmm.
but to tell a story, to share a memory, to actually try to put words to what do you mean to me? What's the difference our connection has made in my life?
Mm-hmm.
I have, it's like it's 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 a great reminder to me to say that stuff, you know, preferably every day, preferably in every meeting, that 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 I share some of that I'm feeling. It is there, but I'm not always conscious of it. But if I bring it top of mind, to not keep it within me, but to actually say it. It's because I mean, some of these pieces that people have written to me have made me cry. Many of them have made me laugh. All of them had made me extremely grateful. Mm. And it's like, well, I know that I've made a difference for real in a couple of people's lives, but to hear it in their words, to see it in their ways. I have one friend who wrote that she kind of has a little mini Helena on her shoulder, asking her, what would Helena do here? And I'm going, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a help for her.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting that stuff is, again, we are important. All of us matter, regardless of what we do or don't do, but just from being. just my being matters. Just your being matters. Just,
Mhm.
there's people out there who go, oh, Mandell, without him, my life would be shit.
Mm.
To hear that, to get that feedback is just, it's such a good reminder to share the good that we see, to share the love that we feel, to share to acknowledge the fact that I'm learning from you. I have fun with you. I enjoy spending time with you. You're really challenging me. Whatever it is.
Mhm. Mm. And I think the part where you said that you matter and that you're important is oftentimes, as you said, it's important to share it because some people don't know. Like they think they're just living through life, but you don't know that you actually are important to somebody. But unless that person or someone else shares it, you don't really know. And that's why sometimes when you hear things about yourself, you're like, oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know that, or I didn't think that, or I didn't see that. I didn't think this little thing that I did was so important, or this little thing that I said was so important. So it's definitely good to verbalize it, for sure.
And it's actually, I can say that getting these 70 inputs for me is making me, it's painting a picture of me that, from the outside, that I can then kind of marry with, okay, what is it that I see from the inside? And aha, this thing that I do that feels like this for me apparently feels like this for people outside,
Hmm.
So it's been a way to see more clearly what it is that I am bringing to the world. Because hands up, everybody who's sometimes, question yourself and think that, there's nothing, I'm no good, I don't have anything of value, I don't know what it is that I'm doing. Is it worth it? Should I keep at it? Is it, all of that stuff? I'm just getting this shower of love back telling me, yes, it actually is.
Mm.
We see, we receive, we appreciate, we cherish. We are helped. Our lives are enriched by you. It's like some, oh, okay. So it's been a humbling experience, I would say. But it is kind of making this, okay, the ground is all of a sudden a little bit firmer because I've gotten kind of proof from such a wide range of people that is like, okay, this feels like they are onto something about who am I?
Yeah.
Um, because it's not always easy. You look in the mirror, you go, hmm, who is that person? I
Hmm.
can make it up in my mind, but it's like I don't know if it's correct or not. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And your thought about so many different people telling you a certain thing that's along a certain path. I remember years ago hearing someone was telling a group of young people, like, hey, if you ever wonder what it is you should be doing with your life or what you're good at, just ask your friends. Like, hey, what do you think I'm good at, or what do you see me doing, or um, when something comes up, do you ever say like, oh, that's Mandel, like, and that's one of the ways that you could really figure out, something that you're good at is
yeah,
when so many different people telling you like, "Oh yeah, that's Helena. She's so good at that," or "She's that person
yeah,
for that." It's like, oh, okay, maybe they're onto something. Maybe they see
yeah,
something that I don't see, or
yeah,
that I'm hiding from in some way.
exactly. Because I think
Hmm.
that can be quite easy to do. And it's like Derek Sivers has this great little snippet where he speaks about what's obvious to you is amazing to others.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's just this thing. It's like, well, what do you mean? That's, you know, Don't everybody? No, actually, not everybody does the thing that you do. It's like,
Yeah.
aha, I didn't know. No, because from my worldview,
Hmm.
I'm looking at the world through the eyes of Elena.
Hmm.
This is what it looks like. So whatever it is that I do, that I take in, it's like, okay, but that's the way of the world.
Hmm.
No, it's the way of Helena's world.
Hmm.
Mandell's world might work completely differently. You have your set of being and doing that just, okay, this is how I am in the world.
Hmm.
That is different from this is how I am in the world. But it's so easy to assume that what I'm experiencing, you have to experience as well. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, you know?
uh, hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of our last convo when we were talking about how you often don't drive, that you prefer biking everywhere. And I think right before we were leaving, you were saying your daughter was coming over to drop off the car and you were going to actually drive. Whereas for another person, um, well, you could easily see it like, wait, doesn't everyone bike everywhere, or doesn't
Yeah.
everyone prefer exercise or not to drive and pollute the earth or whatever? And if you lived in New York, it would be the other way around. They'd be like, "You're biking? Like, shouldn't you be driving there?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be driving there? Like, driving is the first instinct instead of
Yeah.
walking or
Yeah.
running or biking. Driving is just like the natural thing that we do automatically."
Yeah. And I think that's what I enjoy that. I enjoy jolting myself now and again so that those things that this is how I do things, that they kind of become so visible to me that I can see them because then I can challenge them. I can, I can evaluate them. I can ask, are they serving me? Aren't
Hmm.
they serving me? Maybe they served me 10 years ago when I started doing that thing. Does it still serve me? But if I'm just kind of going by rote on an automatic program without reflecting,
Hmm.
um, and I think that's part of because I agree with you. You said that I live a rich life. It's like, yeah, I do live a rich life.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's part of it. This It's not a constant challenging of everything because that would probably drive someone crazy. It's like, I don't have to question brushing my teeth in the morning. I don't have to question doing a 7-minute exercise. I don't have to question the value of drinking water.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things that I'm not. Should I really drink water today? It's like, no, I don't have to question that. But, you know, can I walk more? Hey, I've always just read one book.
Hmm.
What if I have two
Yeah.
going at the same time? Try it.
Yeah.
See. Maybe you go, absolutely not. It does not work. When you've tried it,
Yeah.
then you could challenge that and say, okay, try it at least 3 times or 10
Hmm.
times. But, at least try it. Um, and see what happens. And that's where, again, new stuff can come out of it. Things that you can't kind of logically work your way through, but they can blossom, they can bloom. It's like mycelium that all of a sudden sprout these fruit buddies, and overnight there's mushroom in the forest. They weren't there yesterday, and then they're there. It's like,
Mm.
how? It's like, well, someone decided that it's time to make a fruiting body. It's like, okay, and there it came. Um, it's fun.
Mm.
But what have you been doing since our last conversation?
Since our last conversation.
You've been in Colombia? No?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
I went to Colombia. A friend of mine, a childhood friend, is getting married. So his best man, also one of my childhood friends, decided Colombia was going to be the bachelor party.
Oh, cool. Do you have any connection to the country?
No, no connections
No?
at all. Just that I've never been to Latin America, so I was excited. My first time in Latin America. A few years back, I looked at all the continents and said, okay, I have a few more that I need to go to. And so
Yes.
Latin America crossed off another continent for me. And we had a great time. It was about 15 of us.
Oh,
And we've all,
wow.
yeah, and we've all known each other since high school, some of us even before that. So,
And you're still regularly keeping in touch as well?
oh
Or
yeah,
was it?
we're in a group chat, so we talk every single day. We
Oh,
talk every day.
wow.
Yeah, but this was unique because uh, we were all in one house. We found this big house. We were all in one house. We all ate breakfast together. We had a chef that came to the house every morning. They made Colombian traditional breakfast, and so we sat at a table together and had breakfast. Which, unless we're at restaurants, we don't do. You know, we when we're hanging out, we eat all over the place, walk around. And then one day in particular, we had a toast and some cigars to our friend that's getting married, and we kind of shared stories about how we met each other and some of our personal, just personal relationships that we've had individually with this person. Because collectively we're friends, but then individually everyone has their own unique relationships, and it was great. All of us just sharing stories and going down memory lane.
That's a
The
version of my Google form in a sense.
okay,
It's a live version of that,
yeah,
sharing a memory.
yeah, a memory.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very powerful, and it helped our brotherhood, seeing each other, share intimate, vulnerable moments about experiences that we had. So it was a great time. It was a blast. Now we're thinking of the next trip already.
So here's a question. I am guilty of the prejudice that it is more rare for men to have such a strong, like you say, it's such a strong brotherhood, such a
Hmm.
strong band of friends. It's like generally, it seems like to me that women are better at keeping and retaining friends,
Hmm.
um, and often have a greater social network that way. If things happen, it's like, yeah, I have friends I can call.
Hmm.
But that it seems more common that many men are like, I really don't have any that close friends. But here you have 15, and maybe that's just, I don't know. Is that your group? Or is like, no, and I have these 5 that I went to college with, and these, I don't know.
Yeah. So these guys are. I always say they're my brothers. They're like my brothers. I've known them since high school. And there's a few more. Like I have a friend or brother that I've known since fifth grade, a few that I've known since fifth grade, and we still speak. Not as much as these guys. So these guys, we're in a group chat together. We literally talk about everything, from politics to stock investing to sneakers to everything. We're in a group chat. We talk every day, nonstop. We went out to dinner a couple of nights ago for one of my friend's birthdays. So, it's a brotherhood. I do have other people that I'm close with. Um, but yeah, that is interesting because whenever we do hang out, we always get a lot of like, wow, this is good to see. Like you guys are friends. Like, and then when they hear
Exactly.
how long we've been friends, they're really shocked about it. So we took a picture with all of us together, lined up, and everyone's like, wow, you guys have been, and people that have known us a long time, like you guys have been friends forever.
Yeah.
And so it is rare. So definitely blessed to have that. I think part of it is that we grew up together and we have this unique bond in that, we get into debates or arguments or, we tell each other off or whatever like that. But it always comes back to, fun and enjoying each other again. We don't let that linger. And we've been fortunate, that we have this unique bond together, and moments like Colombia, we feed it. we help it to grow more. So it's like, man, when's the next trip? Because this was so great.
Oh,
And
getting good bumps.
it's so great, yeah. And we often say that, we could be doing anything. If we're together, we make it fun. Like whether it's Colombia, whether it's going out to dinner, whether it's
Whether it's
going
a
to the
gardening
park.
party.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've literally done so through the years. We have incredible history together. The places we've traveled, the things we've done. We've spent many, many hours literally just sitting on the steps of one of my friends' houses, and that was like the highlight of the day because we were doing it together, hanging out and laughing. So it's a unique relationship for sure.
So with 15 of you, are you 15?
Yeah, it was 15 on the trip. There's probably a few more that would fit in that group that didn't make it to the trip, but yeah, and all of us have unique like some of us would be closer to others, like on an individual basis. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a pretty large group of us that
So
have been since high school.
is it rare that you get to be so many together? I mean, is it often it's like, okay, now it was us six who celebrated one of us birthdays. And so do you regularly get together like almost all of you?
Yeah, so there's always a moving part. So it was 15 of us in Colombia, and then when we came back, a friend of mine celebrated his birthday. It might have been 9 of us because
Mhm.
this one is, with his girlfriend, and this one's this one. So but when it's something big, like, listen, this person's getting married, like the
Yeah.
wedding, my friend's gonna get married in Jamaica, we're all gonna be there again because it's
Mhm.
like important. Or if someone has a baby, it's
Oh,
like the baby shower. But there's certain things that we have where everyone just can't make it, work
yeah.
schedules and family. So you understand that. But baby showers and weddings and bachelor parties and certain things, it's like, all right, everyone needs to be there.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely to hear.
Yeah.
And it's so important. I mean, again, talk about a rich life.
Hmm.
Talk about a rich life having people
Yeah.
um, that know you and that hold you and that have your back. And, it's like you can lean on and you have fun. And,
Hmm.
it's just, it's fantastic.
Yeah. It's an awesome relationship for sure. Especially since I've seen so many relationships wither away or deteriorate, or sometimes it's nothing for no bad reasons, just some people outgrow each other or move
Yeah.
on or move away to a different city or start a new career life. So when you have friends that you've known since high school and you're still going, and every now and then
Yeah.
you drop a picture in the group chat like, wow, remember that? And the
Yeah.
stories
Yeah.
start to circulate again.
You come up with, yeah. So
Hmm.
does everybody live in the same city?
No, most of us live here in New York. We have a few. One of our friends just moved to St. Louis, actually, and some of them live right in the next town over, which is New Jersey. But most of us are very close together, other than my friend who moved to St. Louis.
Fantastic. So here's a technical question.
Hmm.
That you have a group chat now makes perfect sense. But did you have that already in high school? It's like, again, there's been a kind of a technical explosion.
Hmm.
So have you always had a group chat? How did you communicate during high school and after high school? Was it like mass texts or
Yeah. So before this group chat, we had an email
list?
thread.
Yeah.
And so we would literally send hundreds of emails to each other every day on our
Yeah.
Blackberries. And then before that, we had AOL Instant Messenger.
Yep.
So we had sidekicks. And so our phones, you could automatically do it. And then before sidekicks came out, we had AOL on a computer. And we would set a time, like tonight at 7, everyone get in the chat room. And we'll all go on and we'll just hang out for a couple of hours. And then in person is always a thing because we were in high school. So, after school, we'll go hang out. And then, I mean, there were times in high school, I remember we would leave high school together. We'll walk over to my friend's house. We'll hang out all day. And then as people started to leave to go do homework or their parents are calling, it's like, all right, tonight at 7, get in the chat room, or go on a video game where you could speak, where you could talk in a video game chat room. It's like, man, we just left each other all day, and already we're planning, to hang out some
We
more in a
want to
different
hang
way.
more.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's never enough. How much can you hang out with the same people? So yeah, it has definitely changed the way we communicate. Now is obviously the simplest, where we just have a group chat with all of us in it. But we had the email thing for a while, which now to think about is insane, because you get like 1,000 emails. But yeah, so it's been a long journey for sure.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear. So here's another question.
Hmm.
Are there any of the guys who have gotten into a relationship where that partner has been jealous about the friendships and the brotherhood
Mm,
that
guess
you
you can.
know of?
Yeah, I guess you could say I'll say yes, but not jealous, and I don't think it would be jealous in a bad way. I think that sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, we could spend so much time together, we forget that there is another relationship. Like if you have a girlfriend, it still is important that you take your girlfriend out, that you spend time with her,
Yeah.
because you get into this thing where you're so used to your guy friends just hanging out and hanging out. I mean, like I said before, we could literally just be on the steps. We're not even doing anything
You're
amazing. We're just
just
hanging on our front porch. And then you forget, like, oh wait, I have I have a girlfriend.
maybe I
I
should
have to.
spend some time with her.
Yeah, exactly. So, we all have great relationships with our friends' girlfriends, but there are times where it's like, oh, your girlfriend would ask you, or my girlfriend would ask, hey, can we go do this? And say, if you say no in that instance, it's like, well, if your friend asks, I bet you'd be willing to do it, So
Yeah.
it's something you have to be mindful of. I can 100% say, as we've gotten older, we've all gotten much better with it. So I probably hear it way less, or not at all at this point, because we've all gotten better with just, um, you know, having different relationships and knowing how to take care of them.
Yeah.
Whether that means, hey, you went to Colombia with all your guy friends, you probably should take your girlfriend to Jamaica next month with just you two, and just
Yes.
making sense of it, really understanding both sides, opposed to when you're younger and you're just all about self much more, and,
Yeah.
enjoying yourself and things of that nature. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there's when I separated and then divorced in 2016 and 17, 18, it was finalized. But at that time, I read a couple of articles about that just hit home so well in the sense that, you know, romantic relationships come and go, you break up. But my girlfriends, mm, they are there for life. Um, and it's an interesting thing to think about for me because relationships or connection is such a connection is the fuel for me. That's, if anything, that's what I've gotten in the responses to this Google form. It's like it is
Mhm.
really connection that I'm good at and I enjoy and I get so much out of, which is, yeah, that's why Tankespjan is 5 meandering deep conversations with 5 fantastic people. But it's interesting in the sense that what makes you what's the ingredient of the connection? S- what's the stuff it's made of when a romantic relationship can feel so important, but then it can break, then it can stop. It's like, where does that energy go? Where does that relate? Where does that connection go? Um, and what is really the difference between a romantic relationship and a friendship? Um, so I find it interesting to just ponder, and I can honestly say that I've deepened relationships. I have friends that I've been friends with for a long time, but the friendships that I have today that are those really, really deep ones, I've more or less cultivated in the last 15 years, 10 to
Mm,
15 years. And there's a volume to that that I enjoy. And it's a volume that is also depth.
mhm.
So it's it's rich for me. I get a lot out of it. And it feels like these friendships that I'm cultivating are it's like it's a deliberate action. It's like it's conscious. This is something that I'm choosing um because I get so much out of it. Um in on various levels. I get so much out of it intellectually or emotionally or just for the sheer fun of it. Or it's like so there's a roundedness somehow that I'm really enjoying.
The idea of choosing your friends, it always reminds me. People say, you can't choose your family, but you could choose your friends, and oftentimes that's who you spend, so much of your life about. I mean, around, I should say. And I too, I love relationships, and I'm always thinking about relationships and the differences in relationships. Because even with these friends, I have these friends, and I have other friends where I have unique relationships with, different relationships, whether it's built around business or book reading or entrepreneurship or whatever it is. It's just a unique relationship that's so much different. Um, so I find relationships fascinating as well, especially marriages. I used to have this thing where I used to walk around, and whenever I saw an older couple, I would just say, "Hey, how long have you how long have you been married?" And they would tell me, and then of course I would say, "Wow, that's a long time. What's the trick? And what's your advice?" And I would get advice, and I mean, I've done it 30, 40 times, and I've met couples that have been married over 60 years, and it's always amazing to me, um, the responses that they give, and how so many of them are so different. I've met couples that have said, "Oh, it's all about prayer." I've met couples that have said, "Just give her whatever she wants, just give her whatever she wants." Or I've met men that have said uh, I met one gentleman who told me, like, never cheat. He talked about loyalty and things like that. So I've heard all different kinds of advice just from asking that one question, like, "Hey, how long have you been married?" And it's amazing whenever I see someone say that they've been married for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to relationships. I just think about, how could you be in a relationship with someone that long and still going? And what's it like when you're living with someone and paying bills and all those kind of things that come into play? Just those different relationships, and even with parenting. And um, my uncle, who grew up a mother's boy, I remember one conversation I had with my grandmother. He had just got married, and my grandmother said, as much as a mother's boy as he is, if something happened to me and something happened to his wife at the same time, she would want him to go with his wife because now he's married and that's his responsibility. And I was like shocked when I heard her say that, because I'm like, what? We're family. Like, this is grandma, this is mom. Until I got older, I was like, oh, okay, so
Now
that's
you
another
get
level of
it.
the relationship where you start to get it. Like, all right, now you're to your wife's responsibility, or your wife is your responsibility at this point, and not your mother. Or the same if someone said, "Hey, you have to decide between your children and your spouse," and most people probably say, "I'm going for my children." I'm going for my children. So relationships are always fascinating to me, and how people cultivate them.
Are you or have you been married?
No, I'm not married. Never been married. But for some reason, I don't know how I got this bug, but I'm just so interested in marriage. But I ask strangers all the time, "How long have you been married?" And we always
Interesting.
have amazing combos. Yeah, and it's always even funnier when only one partner is there at the moment, like especially if it's the guy, because then he gives me like guy stuff. Like he'll go into
He
detail.
can be honest,
Yeah,
right?
he can be honest. He can be honest. And I had one gentleman tell me that at one point he did have like a girlfriend, and he just said it wasn't worth it. He's like, man, he said, I thought about it, my children and my marriage, and you get a divorce. He's like, it's not worth it. Like, don't do it. He's like, don't go down that line. So I've had some great advice and some things to do, some things not to do. But I just find it fascinating that there are people that have been married longer than I've been alive, and the amount of wisdom that you could learn from them in a world where I think the average marriage is 5 years now, something like that. So it's amazing wisdom out there.
Yeah. And it's an interesting aspect this, if you have to choose between your spouse and your kids,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
I am a parent for life,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But there's a time when I need to be an active parent.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, in normal circumstances should end somewhere around the age of 20, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It can be 18, it can be 22, but somewhere around there, right? It's like that's
Mm-hmm.
when I'm no longer to be an active parent in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
because then my job as a parent is to make sure that my kids can fly. If
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to fly, maybe I'm going to have to put a foot in their ass and kick them out,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can see that, oh shit, I can fly. Yeah, because it's time, right? But my spouse, if you kind of disregard the fact that most marriages last for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
I I I would want to think, and maybe this is a romantic notion, but it's like, okay, I'm wed for life. I'm a spouse for life. So in some senses, it should still be my spouse could still be at least the priority relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That way, depending on what it is and when it is, right? But I think that's one of the problems that maybe also make a lot of relationships fail when the kids are leaving the nest. It's
Mm-hmm.
because kids have been prio and that other person is like, no, I haven't really spent any time with you for the past 15 or 20 years. Now we're alone. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Um, so that's an interesting thing to have in mind.
Yeah. It
Um,
is. It's an interesting dynamic indeed, and especially for the reason that you just said. Once the children get older and leave the house, now like there's no excuse, there's no reason, or it's just you two now. And if you haven't had that relationship, it can be a weird spot. And
yeah.
so I have heard people say that there have been marriages where children have kept the marriage together, and there have been marriages where children have caused, I don't want to say it's not the children's fault, but in the people that are married's words, the children have caused a divorce in the sense that now that they're older, they're no longer there. It's like, well, what keeps us married? And so I've heard advice that, hey, even when you're married and you have children, it's important that you still do things like, you still do things without your children, where you go on dates and you spend time with your spouse, because your children won't always be there, but your spouse will. And so you still need to have that relationship. And I've heard men say to their children, like, I'm married to your mother, I'm not married to you. Like, I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
like, I don't owe you anything. I'm raising you, but I'm married to your mother. And like you said, it's important, especially once the children get older, that you have that relationship. It's
Yeah,
because
and
it can
I
feel
I
weird.
have a I have a friend who once said that parents during the active parenting, let's say those 2 decades after birth, parents should never go on a vacation alone without the kid or kids. And I'm
Mm.
going, "What? Why not?" And he's like, "No, no, no, you have to be together." And I'm going, "Really? You think that? That's just weird for me." It's like, "No, no." And I would say that it's a good thing to have the parents go for a vacation and leave the kids with grandma or, best
Mhm.
friend or whoever. Mom can take one of the kids, dad stay home with the other one, or the other way around, or I go with both kids, dad staying home, or the other way around, so that you're also building more relationships than just, okay, here's the family with all of the members, and that's
Mhm.
the only setup that's viable. It's like, no,
Mhm.
you need to strengthen the bonds that are there
Mhm.
individually and in varying constellations, because
Mhm.
that makes it stronger, I would say. That makes it more resilient. That makes
Mhm.
it, you know, chances are greater that if mom or dad or one of the kids dies or moves to the other side of the world or whatever it is, it's like, okay, but I know how to be in a connection with you without having
Mhm.
mom to be the project leader for
Mhm.
everything. Um, so and I'm guessing that's a little bit like what you're saying with your brotherhood as well. It's like it's not always everybody. You
Mhm.
can hang out with one, two, three, or 15 of them, and in different constellations and very because you're building relationships with each individual, but also in that threesome or in this fivesome or in this
Mhm.
15-some. Things shift and it gets stronger.
Mhm.
Um,
So did your friend say after the children turn 20, don't go
no,
on vacation?
before.
Oh,
It's like
before. Oh,
during
only
those
vacation.
active parenting years,
Okay.
when your kid
Yeah.
is 10, you can't go on a vacation without your kid. And I'm going, yes,
Yeah.
I can.
I
And I
I I
want
would agree
to.
with yeah. I actually agree with you that you should have all those different vacations, and I actually I've thought about that, when the day comes hopefully that I'm a father, about having, as a dad, having a relationship with my son that's going to be different from my daughter. Like, hey, let's just say if I have multiple sons. All right, I want to take my sons out today. We're going to go play basketball or do whatever. And then my daughters are not going to be there. And then another day, I'm going to take my daughters out, and we're going to do whatever she wants to do.
You're going to
And
go play basketball.
yeah, or whatever she wants to do. And but my sons won't be there. They'll be with their mom. I've often thought about having those relationships, and thinking about my childhood. We did do family vacations. I've never gone on vacation with just I have gone on vacation with just my dad, but it was only after my mom passed. So I've never when my mom was here married, I've never gone on vacation like with just one parent. I've traveled outside with just one parent, but it wasn't vacation. We went to like a church function or something like that. It wasn't really vacation. But I guess that helps build the dynamic.
Yeah.
But I think that is very interesting to build those dynamics, because then what can happen, like say if it's only us four, we have to do everything together. If something happens, even not even death, but if you feel a certain way about something, it's hard to go to a person because it's like, well, we're all, but if we have this unique, oh, I can go to dad about this
Yeah.
and he might tell mom that's on him, but I
Yeah.
can go to him because we have this relationship, or I can go to my sister about this
Yeah.
and not have to worry about my parents. And so you have those unique bonds. And so yeah, that's interesting. I would love to just go on vacation with my sons and then no wife, and then say, "Hey, you take them out sometime," because you get to
Yeah.
you get to learn that dynamic. Um Never a vacation, but I've had days where it's like, "All right, I'm going to the doctor with mom." And then the next day it's like, "Oh, I'm going to Harlem shopping with dad." It could be all four of us, but it's different. In fact, growing up, my dad did most of the grocery shopping on Saturdays, and my mom would stay home and, cook and clean or whatever. And I would go with my dad grocery
Yeah.
shopping. So we had that unique bond,
Yeah,
grocery shopping, pushing the cart and all
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So, all that stuff is unique and is important, and
Yeah,
one
it is
doesn't necessarily think
important.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is important. I think it is important. And I read many, many years ago, I read about a Swedish dad who had a 4-year-old daughter or something where the mom, his wife, had died of breast cancer or something. And he was like, I didn't know how to cut her nails
Mm.
because I'd never cut her nails.
Mhm.
I'd never put her hair up in a ponytail. I'd never
Mhm.
braided her hair. So there's 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 that aspect as well. It's like maybe mom is a lot better at cutting nails and dad is the one who aces at braiding hair. But to make sure that you at least have done the work, which you
Mhm.
do if you're alone for a week with your
Mhm.
daughter and mom's not gone because she's dead. She's gone because she's with her friends on
Mhm.
Mallorca. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, then you get to try out all of those things.
Mhm.
And then that doesn't have to be such a shock because he was saying that was such a shock.
Mhm.
That was like, he had to, really think about all of the things that he wasn't thinking about because he had never done it.
Mhm.
So it was like an added burden onto an already burdensome and troublesome situation where mom's gone because she's dead.
Mhm.
And now, oh my God, nails? Do we, it's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Um,
That's such a great point. I often hear, even on a smaller scale, like, sometimes you see, especially with new parents, like if the mom is finally going to get like a night out with her friends, she'll make this big list for the dad, like do this, do this, do this, do
yeah,
this, because he's never actively done it. He's watched it, but he's never really done it. And then even with the list, you'll still see like dad will call, "What do I do? Like what
yeah.
do I do?"
Where do I find that thing?
Yeah, yeah,
What was the
exactly.
setting on the microwave?
And is asking these questions. Or I have a friend who she's the mom that's very involved with the schooling, and the dad, he's not really involved with this. He doesn't go to
Yeah,
parents teachers conferences. He doesn't do all of that. And so, when if she's away and then he has to be involved in it, it's like, what time do they go to school? Like, what time do they go to school? Where do I drop them off at? It's all these questions because it's not a certain thing. And even bringing it back to marriage, I've heard of married couples where the wife handled all the finances.
yeah,
And so when the wife passed away, the dad was like lost. Like, how do
yeah,
you pay bills, or
yeah.
where's the money? Like, they don't know those things because it wasn't an active part. So, like you said, it'd be good to just get a couple of weeks of practice in an event that something happened. This is how you would do it, or even vice versa. The husband does all the house things, fixes up everything, and then he passes away, and the wife is like, well, where do I go now? What do I do now? So all those dynamics
Yeah.
play a part.
Yeah. And again, for sure we have personal preferences and your dad did the grocery shopping and it's like, well, I don't clean windows. So since my husband left and or we divorced, it's like windows really haven't been cleaned that much, let me tell you. But I know how to do it. I have
Mhm.
done it. I know how to do it. So and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the important thing. Like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what goes on in our relationship, in our household. It's like,
Mhm.
do I have the number to the car repair person or to the
Mhm.
bank, or do I have all of the checking account digits and stuff? And it's like, just to make sure that it's okay, so that, like you say, if or when shit hits the fan for some reason, you're not standing there also totally stumped by the fact that I don't know. I don't know who to call. I don't know where to find the stuff. I don't know what we have. I don't know what we own. I don't know where's the bill coming in. You know, in
Mhm.
Sweden, we have a lot of electronic invoices. that then comes to one person.
Mm.
So I can be the one on the electric bill. So if I drop off, where does that bill go? Or if I'm in the hospital, I get concussed, or I'm in a coma in the hospital for 6 weeks. Can he log in? No, he really can't. It's like, so that you have a grip
Mhm.
on all of that stuff. And I would say it's it's probably one of those things that many of us pretend we don't really. Nah, 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 nah. It won't happen to me. So you don't have your house in order, in essence. I'm not sure I have my house in order, but it's a reminder. It's a reminder to make sure that you have. Because I mean, if the worst happens and somebody dies, or gets seriously ill or something, that shit is hard enough.
Yeah, exactly.
If you also have to deal with the not knowing of all of the just regular mundane stuff,
Mhm.
you're really adding burden to burden in a way that's not necessary, I think. If you just have a little bit of forethought, at least.
Mhm.
So it's a good thing. And I
Yeah.
listened to Ramit Sethi.
Mhm.
He's this personal finance guru, whatever. And I kind of enjoy his podcast where he speaks to couples about their finances. So people are like, applying to come on his podcast, and it can be the richest of the rich that have their sets of problem, or shit, we don't have any money. What do we do? But I would
Mm.
say one of the most common advices that he is like really stands for is this thing: make sure that everybody knows about the finances, so you don't
Mm.
have one party who's, oh, I'm the finance person and you're not. So
Mhm.
don't do that. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't, because also, if you divorce, if I'm the one who knows the finances, you have no clue. Well, one, I could probably royally screw you over, you
Mhm.
know? But two, if you've never paid a bill, it's like, what do you do? How do you do? You're really setting yourself up for hard times.
Yeah. And as you said, hard times on top of hard times, which death is always a reminder for me of that, because when someone dies, you have to deal with so much. You got to contact all the family, you got to do the funeral arrangements and burial. And so when you find someone that doesn't have any insurance, life insurance, or they don't have a will, and it just complicates things on top
Yeah.
of that. And then when you deal with, oh, they don't have a will and they have children and they have siblings, and who gets this and who gets this,
Yeah.
and now the family is starting to butt heads and have arguments. And we haven't even talked about that. We're mourning right now
No.
a death of a
Yeah.
loved one,
Yeah.
and now we're dealing with, this person lives here and they need to get here because of all that. Wouldn't A lot of it could be avoided if beforehand,
Yeah.
this one says, I'm going to write out a will. This is
Yeah.
what I want everyone to do. I have life insurance. I have this policy. I have this. And so it takes a little bit off of the load off, so you don't
Yes.
have to deal with so much, like you said, another burden on top of the original burden. So
Yeah.
all that beforehand thinking is so
Yeah.
important.
And there's my friend Johan, who's a Swedish. He's a Swedish version of Namit Sethi, you can say. He's the like, he has the biggest blog and podcast of personal finance in Sweden, or one of
Oh, wow.
them.
Hmm.
But he has one episode that I actually sent around to friends and family. I say, you have to listen to this,
Mm.
because it's in Swedish, and it's for Swedish conditions, because
Mm-hmm.
inheritance law differs in all countries.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
find your country's Ramit Sethi or Johan Bolmeson, and dig into that, and just listen, because that episode is so important, where he just speaks about this thing. If your spouse dies, or someone close to you dies, what do you do? Are you covered?
Mm.
And it's just so I had one pair of friends who they actually made a will after listening to that. Because like, okay,
Mm.
we
Put
don't
things in
have our
order.
house in order, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Also, especially if, like you say, marriages last 5 years, yeah, I bring kids into the marriage or relationship, and you have your kids, and then we have kids together. In Sweden, the inheritance laws for all of those sets of kids is different.
Mm.
So having made a will to say, if you die, can I still stay in the house, or does your kids have to get their inheritance right off, which means I might have to sell the house, which means all of the
Mhm.
kids are without a place to live. It's like, think it through. And, it's an hour or two. Find a solicitor or a lawyer and just, sit down and get help.
Mhm.
Maybe it will never be needed, but if it's needed, man, will whoever is left standing be happy
Yeah.
that it was there.
Yeah. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah.
I think some people are a little spooky about making a will.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want to be thinking about death or, wishing death on me. So they try to avoid it or getting life insurance or whatever. But like you said, it becomes a burden to your loved ones
Yeah.
that
And
are left remaining.
yeah, and it's like it's the only thing we know. When we
Mhm.
are born, the one dead certain thing is that we're gonna die.
Mhm.
At least so far. So far,
Yeah.
nobody has actually made us immortal, and
Yeah.
I hope they don't ever. But we are all dying.
Mhm.
It is
So
a
if it's
matter of fact.
yeah. So you figure if it's the one thing that we know for sure, then maybe it should be the one thing we prepare for.
Yes, because we know it's going to happen, and
Yeah.
you know, odds are it's not going to be convenient.
Mhm.
Cause shit happens all the time. It's not as if everybody lives until they're old and then they die peacefully in their sleep. Sorry, but
Mhm.
that's not the way of the world, and it's never been the way of the world.
Mm.
Never, ever, right? We get sick or we get hit by a car or we're in a violent, we're in an accident or somebody kills us or, it's like
Mhm.
shit happens. Yeah. Or I'm giving birth and I'm dying because, yeah, it happens. Still today, it happens. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I would hope that we'd get less, like you said, scared of that aspect. But then again, I actually think society is headed in the other direction. There's less and less embodied knowledge and knowing death.
Mm.
How many people have seen a dead person? How many people have even seen a dead animal? That's not an ant or a bee or, a cockroach, but actually a horse or a cat or your dog or
Mhm.
how many people have really seen someone you love, your cat. That's one of the reasons we had guinea pigs when the kids were smaller, because
Mhm.
we have cats and we've always had cats, but cats can live for a long time. And I wanted my kids to have an animal that didn't have that long of a lifespan so that they would meet death.
Mm.
So that the first time they meet death, it's not grandma
Mhm.
or grandpa or someone that you really love that is so close to you. He's like, yeah, sure. The kids loved Darwin and Stephanie, as they were called. But, it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, they're buried up in the garden.
Mm.
Um, or at least Darwin is, because she lived to be old, and then she actually got a new retirement. She had a her own retirement home somebody who took her and had her for her last year, which was great for her because they had other guinea pigs, so she was in heaven.
Uh,
But
guinea
Darwin is
pig
still
heaven.
up there in the garden. It's
Mm.
like, yeah, the kids got to feel death. I mean, we don't even the meat. I don't eat meat, but even meat that you buy doesn't look like it's a thing. It's
Mhm.
chopped up and ready to go, put on the, in the frying pan. Doesn't look like a horse or a cow or a pig.
I'd never heard of that idea before, to have your child meet death in a different way the first time. And that's very, very interesting because I want to say my niece's first time with death was actually my grandmother. And it was kind of like traumatic for them. But if you could introduce it to them in a different way, that's very, very unique to think of something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I had the first funeral I went to was my grandma. The first funeral that I know that I went to was my grandma. She died in 89, so I was 17. Um, and that was I was she had an aortic aneurysm, so the aorta, the main vessel to the heart, ruptured. But she didn't die. They managed to save her and keep her alive for 3 weeks, and then she died.
Mm.
And she was dying. She was bad. So when she finally died, um, that felt like a relief. It's like, okay, now she doesn't have to suffer. She doesn't have to be afraid of where she is and it's like that was not a good place for her those last 3 weeks, I think. But going to her funeral, oh, it was hard. And I
Mm.
remember because I hadn't cried until the funeral. That's when the absurdity of the situation for me then just got so real. It's like, here's my grandma. She's dead. She's gone. I won't ever hug her again. I won't ever talk to her again. I was crying, crying, crying so hard. And it felt it was a new experience to me.
Mm. Which makes me think about the other side of that experience is someone that might experience death all the time, that at some point they kind of become immune to it, or it's like it almost doesn't phase them. Like, oh, I've seen so many people die, people that live in different countries or have a different lifestyle. So there's like the two sides where one can be very shocked by death and one could be almost unmoved and unfazed by death.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say can I be somewhere in the middle? I think that would be a good place where it's like I I know that I can be in it with it so it doesn't feel
Hmm.
like that shock to the system, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to feel. I
Hmm.
don't want to be indifferent to death. I
Yeah.
want to honor it and
Hmm.
be respectful of it that way.
Yeah. I remember my great grandmother, she passed away at 100 years old.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember having so much peace about it because it's like, she's 100. She's
Yeah.
100. You
Yeah.
know, what more could you have asked for?
Yeah.
She lived 100 years. She's seen so much, Great Depression and civil rights. And
Yeah.
she saw her children grow up, her grandchildren, her great grandchildren, and
Yeah.
on and on, 5, 6 generations. And so you have like this peace about it.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like that for people that reach a certain age. It's like, how much longer did you expect them to live? We know they were going to die. And so that was one death that I had like the most peace about because, she was 100 years old. At the same time, if someone was to come to me and tell me like, oh, my grandmother died, she was 95, and say they're like boohoo crying, I'm not going to say, well, she's 95. Like, what'd you expect? because everyone's relationship is different. You don't know, if grandma might have raised her, or just she doesn't have peace about it for her own reasons.
Mm.
But I just know for me personally, it was just like, oh, great grandma died, and it was just like, okay, she was 100. Man, she lived a great life. Like she lived a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
I hope I live to 100.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And it's like uh, in Women Who Run with the Wolves, the book
Mm,
by Clarissa Pinkola Estes that I'm now reading it for the third time in 2 years, and I'm on my
wow.
second book circle about it, where I have a circle every chapter. So really going deep into it. But she speaks a lot about the life cycle.
Mm,
And I think that's the relationship with it that I think would make us able to live rich lives, is the understanding that you live, you die, and something else starts to live.
mm,
This is where all the food we have comes from.
mm,
Soil is made from things living and then dying and, getting melted up, eaten up by little worms and turned into soil, where new stuff grows from. So, and it's the same, as a person. It's like, yeah, I live, I die, I live, but I can do, going to bed at night can be a type of, okay, now I'm putting to rest this day. That's kind of the death of the day
mhm,
that is today. And then tomorrow, new life, new day.
mhm,
So it's like there's this this sense of death not being this anathema that, oh no, it's dangerous, we can't have it, it's to be shunned and pushed away at all cost. It's like,
mhm,
no, it's actually a prerequisite for life.
mhm.
Without it, Earth wouldn't work if there was no
Yeah.
death. It just wouldn't work. If you look at it from a purely like ecological standpoint, it would not work. Not the way that it is set up, you know? The setup hinges on life, death, and life.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that idea. Makes you want to look for the beauty in death, even if you're not even speaking about physical beings, but it could be death of attitudes or old mindsets, or you go into a
Yes.
new year and it's like I'm putting that thing to bed to rest.
Yes.
The old me is dying. Or even you look at businesses. I mean, how many businesses have died so that other businesses could live and flourish?
Yeah.
Blockbuster and Netflix and Yahoo
Yeah.
and Google and
Yeah.
um, we're probably in 5, 10 years gonna be mostly electric cars, and so the old way of driving a car, gas is gonna die. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's some beauty.
It's a good, it's a good thing to kind of have with you so that it doesn't scare you so much. You can kind of bring it home close and see that, oh yeah, when I'm throwing away the last of the milk because it's gone really sour. Yeah, it's so that I have room so I can buy a new pint of
Hmm.
milk and put it in the fridge, right? But it's like from the small to the
Yeah,
large.
exactly. Hmm.
Um,
Nothing lasts forever, not even your milk.
nope. Unless you have UHT, maybe it lasts forever then, but maybe not. Right? But I mean, that's a little bit like this. No, nothing lasts forever, not even humans. And it's like, no, and I don't, in this physical body, I wouldn't want to live forever. I
Hmm.
don't see that as a like, no. It's like, 'cause I wanna grow old.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna I wanna live so that I can grow old, and I would definitely prefer not to grow old and, infirm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But I wanna grow old. I'm at 50 now, and I'm so enjoying 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look back at all of the other ages I've been, see that, yeah, 10. Wow, what an age. And then 20, 30, 40, now 50 is like, oh, what will 60 be? 70, 80, and
Mm-hmm.
90, and maybe 100. My paternal grandma got to be 98, I think.
Mm.
2 weeks shy of 98. It's like, so yeah, there's potential there.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
and
I know you're still doing your 50 celebrations, but
yeah,
have you began looking at how you want the next 10 years to look like? Or any goals or dreams or plans?
it's a good question. Like in general, I would say I suck at answering that type of question.
Mhm.
Um, and one part of it is because I've been pondering this quite a lot. My friend Emma, who was in the second season, has been asking the question, what do I want? And been answering it in the creative community that we share. But it's like, I'm for all the creativity that can come pouring out of me, answering that question can just stump me. It's like,
Mm.
what do I want? And how do I don't generally paint these vivid pictures of, oh, in 5 years, this is the perfect day and stuff. But at the same time, I really enjoy life. I enjoy my rich life. I want to have a rich life in 10 years as well. And then every year until those 10 years is gone. I do want a close, intimate relationship because I'm single and I have been single for, well, 5 years. Um, and that want, I think, is because I want that richness as well. It is not, I think, or I feel, because I don't enjoy being on my own, because boy, I enjoy being on my own.
Mm.
It's, it's like I love living here on my own and being my own boss, so to speak, doing
Mhm.
the things that I want to do and having it in the way that I want to have it. But I'm getting ready to kind of rub off on someone else because I've been dealing so much with my own stuff that it's like I could use somebody else to help shake me up so that there's
Mm.
more of my stuff that gets brought to the surface in a sense. And I think that's one of the one of the perks of close relationships. It's like, yeah, it brings you all of this good stuff for you to just deal with. Um, but it's like I want to be here in 10 years' time. I love my house. I love my garden. Um, can I be somewhere else? Yeah, for sure. But it's like I don't want to go traveling the world. I don't want to have a big fancy house. I don't, it's like I don't want a big fancy car. No, thank you, not.
Mhm.
Um, so I have a lot of the life that I'm leading is very deliberately chosen. I do enjoy and revel in what I have, what I am here, how I am here.
Mm. Yeah, I was curious if because you're so much of a generalist, interested in so many different things, if saying, "Oh, the next 10 years I want to do this," kind of boxes you in a way that you don't prefer to be boxed in.
Yeah, it's not impossible that you're onto something there. Um, I don't really see, um, like I I mean, I'm the therapy that I'm doing, and have been doing now for almost 2 years. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of more years there until we're possibly done.
Mm,
But that done isn't a final destination, and it's definitely not a clear destination. So it's not as if I'm done when I'm X, Y, and Z. It's like,
mhm,
no. I'm guessing it might kind of evolve in such a way that, okay, now time for something else. Again, life, death, life.
mhm,
Um, but I don't really have one of those, oh, I want to learn how to do this thing or that thing, but I'm
mhm,
sure it will come because it kind of comes.
mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So only things for certain is that over the next 10 years, some things will live, some things will die.
Yeah, yeah. And some new
Mhm,
things will be born. It is really
mhm,
that letting go to let come cycle,
mm,
which is,
mhm,
breath. I have to let go in order to let come. I
yeah.
cannot inhale if I have not exhaled. It is not
Mhm.
possible. If my lungs are full, my lungs are full.
Yeah. Mm. I know earlier you mentioned about learning guitar and playing guitar. Are you doing any other courses right now? I know there's always a Kimbo, and then I know you did the keyboard CEO. Are you doing
No,
any?
but I did buy um did buy a master class that took place in the middle of the night to today by Simone Sill, who's
Mm,
a salesy person who's into like ethical marketing, ethical sales, etc., non-hustling versions
mm,
that I'm kind of curious about. Because that hinges back to I've been speaking to other people here about my inner ethics committee on marketing that just goes, ugh, there's stuff that I don't like. I don't want to do it. And then I don't perhaps market me in ways that I could and should. So
mhm,
that's something, there's something there about getting in sync with my inner ethics committee on marketing and how that will take form
mhm.
out into the world. So that's probably um that's a topic that I'm you know yeah digging into, pondering.
Wh- What was her last name? Simone what?
SEOL.
Oh, okay. SEO.
Yeah.
I have to check her out myself.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link. Um and it's like, yeah. Yeah, so there's that. And then, who knows? Um who knows? What about you? Do
Courses.
you look at your life that way? Do you plan ahead?
Oh, to some degree, not like exact. I have like ideas and things that I want to do in business and in life. Like earlier, I shared how sometimes I think about when I'm a parent. So I want to be a parent one day and married and things of that nature. But I don't do it to the exact like I know some people do. Like this has to happen and this has to happen. I
Yeah.
kind of like as long as I'm doing these things, I'll let what develop develop.
Yeah.
Um, It's more so like, what am I doing, an everyday thing? Like, am I reading? Am I writing? And kind of let those things lead to what I want to do.
I actually sat down in bed today, this morning, or sat up in bed and wrote by hand in my little, I have a moon journal or dream journal. And I wrote, I want to write more because I have
Mm.
hardly written at all this year.
Mm-hmm.
I write the podcast descriptions, which are like blog posts, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written like 2 or maybe 3 blog posts, but that's it. And I haven't been writing from my the from the therapy sessions either, which I did for the first year. So it's like, yeah, something is bubbling in me that it's time to start putting pen to paper again for me as well.
Mm.
Uh, so that's something that I think there will be more of.
And if you write more, what takes a hit? Do you read a little less, or where does that time come from?
Possibly read, but actually a lot of my writing takes place at 9, 10, 11 at night.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm reading then, but other time. Right now I'm watching Manifest on Netflix, this really super cool series about people who, yeah, well, it's a time travel aspect, you can say. It's super cool. I'm really enjoying it. But I am, for some reason, and I kind of wish I wasn't, but I'm kind of sharp at that time. So a lot of the blog posts that I've written over the years, I've written,
Wow,
late in the evening.
interesting.
Because then it's like, I cuddle up in the sofa and I put my laptop in my lap and an hour or 2 is gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Versus most people, they say they're sharpest in the morning.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning.
Yeah. Which is like, no, no, no. In the morning, I do what normal people do at night. I lie in bed and I'm reading or I'm writing a little journaling stuff. But it's like I
Mm-hmm.
can, I can do some meditation, but I can also just, be on Twitter or Facebook or, it's like I do that relaxing time. I usually wake up at 6 and then I'm just enjoying myself until 8, 9 when I get up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's flipped for me.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Evening times, you're locked and loaded.
Yeah, yeah, I am. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually fascinating because I just realized it yesterday. I have a little fun app on my iPad. Let's see what it's called. It's called Zen Match, which is basically
Mm.
like a Mahjong type. You match 3 similar, and then it goes away, and you're to clear the deck. So sort of, and it's like mindless in one sense, but at night, man, I am flying through the levels there because I see. Because
Mm.
it's about there's one version of it where it's a counting down clock and you need to clear the deck before its time is up, and it just and I was thinking last night that when I try to do that one during the day, I suck miserably. I fail almost every time. In the evening, woo, I'm zooming through it, and I think it is this thing.
Mm.
We're all different. It's so
Yeah,
cool,
all
isn't
wired
it?
different.
Yeah, 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 it is. Well, maybe that's a good place to end it on. We're all different, and what
We're
a
all
good thing
different.
that is.
The beauty in difference
Yeah.
and in death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I'm curious to see if that's a piece of tankesbjörn for listeners.
yeah,
Might be.
we'll soon find out.
We'll soon find out precisely. Well, thank you, Mandell, for today. It's been lovely as ever to talk to you.
Yes, and thanks for the invitation, of course. And I'm just at some point I'm going to go back and listen all three again. And every time you listen, there's more gems, and you never know, like you said, what we're going to talk about. And today, marriage and death
Marriage
and
and death. Yep. It's a
what
good
we talked about.
combination, I would
Yeah,
say. We've covered the entire
and
spectrum there in a sense,
yeah, we talked
marriage,
about
parenting, and
birthdays.
death.
Yeah, so interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah. I have been pondering setting up a mastermind group to explore each participant's inner ethics committee on marketing and selling. And I wonder if that's not a good idea. But it's still just something I'm thinking about. But if that resonates for you, if you get curious about it, send me a little message. And we'll see. Maybe that's what will be needed for me to actually get it up and running. And I know that would be really, really interesting because me and my inner ethics committee, we have a lot of things to talk about. And I'm sure you do with yours as well. So send me an email or find on tankesbjörn.com. You can contact me through the web form there. So enjoy your day.